Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I've got my K glass tonight, not the Seahorses. The Seahorse glass is dirty. But I am sipping on Pinot Noir. Let me know what you're sipping on in the chat, which I will turn on now. Holly, I know you have a lot to discuss with us tonight. So I'm guessing you're like chugging water?
Yeah, I have water.
Water. Okay. Works for me. One of these days, we're going to turn this into um,
Sober only.
Whitewater Wednesday or something. Water Wednesday? I don't know.
Sober Wednesday.
Something. Because Kelly's working so hard at work that she doesn't need the wine. But I have it tonight. Anyhow, to start us off, I know we're going to dive into what's going on with Holly, but I just want to ask, is anything going on with you, Sophie, to start off?
No, not much. I don't have any fry again. There hasn't been much going on.
So I would tell you that I talked to my daughter earlier, and you guys know my teens that have made my life a living hell for years and years and years, but they're finally graduated and they're finally out of the house, which I love them and miss them. But point being, they always said, why aren't your seahorses having fry? What's going on? And in this circumstance, I'm like, they know. They know that mama can't handle any more kids right now. And Sophie, I know you're just like me and you want to experiment and you want to have the fry, but you're also like, I can't even come to Wine Wednesday because, oh my God, I've got dance and all this other stuff. So I'm not saying this like legitimately for anybody out there, but sometimes, whether it be God, whether it be seahorses, whether it be whatever, something happens where they're not giving you fry, and it's probably because you're not ready for them. Just my thoughts on the topic. Because Sophie's doing everything right. Of course, I'm doing everything right. You guys know that. And it's not the end of the world because you still have your gorgeous seahorses to come home to, care for, look at, etc. All right. Anything else, Sophie, that you want to talk about before we dive into Holly?
Not much. I would say though that I had a funny experience this week.
Okay.
With this box here. So that is from my dad had a saltwater aquarium. He had a bunch of corals. These included stinging corals, except his aquarium went downhill really fast. So I have the stinging corals up here. It's just like a breeder net. Mm-hmm. And the other day I filled my aquarium and you can see the water level is really high. And it got like slightly above, like this much above the rim. Yeah, they managed, Dot, who's here dancing, managed to get in. Now, I don't know how, but she did.
They do.
So now I'm worried
Leave about the seahorses. They're curious.
Yep.
So now I'm worried about these big edges, but I don't think they can get over those. But yeah, she managed.
So what? Wait. So what you're saying is, in this, and what is this contraption? What is it?
It's like a breeder net. We got it for some of my dad's like little baby fish. We would put them in here.
Okay. And what do you have in there
like
now?
Mesh. It's corals.
Okay.
Like
and you're just
here.
What kind of corals?
There's a hammer coral in there.
Okay.
I don't actually know what they're called because we never got the names for them.
Okay.
We have I forget which. Oh, acans. We have a lot of acans in there. And then yeah, I don't know.
How are they doing?
They're doing really well actually now.
Really?
They were doing really badly in my dad's tank, and I put them in here. It took a while for them to get better, but they're all getting much better, except for like one that actually just died in his tank. So
what's really curious to me is we typically say don't keep things like acans and, any of the LPS or SPS in a seahorse tank because they need the higher temperatures. But
Yeah.
in this case, it might be that something was going on in your dad's tank. And because they got the lower temperatures, the bacterial load diminished or, was lower. And maybe they were able to heal. That's really interesting. And that they're thriving at the lower temperature is really interesting. Go ahead.
When I put them in the tank, I knew that it wouldn't be the perfect place for them, but we didn't have
Right.
that aquarium's currently, like the one over there, is not currently good for the corals right now. So this was our best bet. So I put them in here and they've been doing really well actually.
That's really interesting. Ray, you had a thought.
The water quality. Maybe it's because Sophie looks after that water quality better than her dad looks after his.
So
Yeah.
I disagree 100. So I'm going to stop making you big real quick. I disagree with that statement 110%. And here's why. Because coral they don't like dirty, but they like food and they like
A lot of
uh
SPS don't like dirty water. As a matter of fact,
I said they don't like dirty. Right. Okay. Go ahead.
some SPS don't do well in seahorse tanks because of it.
I think SPS don't do well in seahorse tanks because of temperature and because of organics. Absolutely agree. But the seahorse is hitching on them and killing their polyps and whatever. But I think it's a unique circumstance where Sophie has used her clean, very clean, because she keeps it so clean for the seahorses, tank to revive these coral. And what are you doing for lighting for them, Sophie?
It's just the same as always. Like they only get the light. I have the, what's it called? It starts with an N. It's an LED strip. What's the name of it? Night. No, I forget the name of it.
Okay.
But just the same light as I always have here. When I got my aquarium, I didn't really know what I was choosing that much. It's not like a super professional one. I also had to go on the cheaper side.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what
it works.
Yeah.
It's working. And that's
also, you have to understand that they did come, like my dad's tank, it was not cycled properly, I don't think. It was also a very, very small tank, so that makes things harder. So the conditions in that one were really, really bad.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that it was like dirty, like a little bit dirty. It was horrible. And
okay. So Ray's point's very valid, and we've made it, and I agree. Absolutely. If it came from a dirty tank into a cleaner tank, it's going to do better. But it's just amazing to me. I want you to update us. What's the plan with the corals? Because if you're planning to keep them there for any kind of time, I'd love an update, because the coral enthusiasts are, and I've had mixed reefs. I know I'm all about lighting and the temperature and what you put in the water and the additives and all that stuff, but it'd be really crazy if you were able to grow, not just keep, but grow coral in a seahorse tank in a little box on the side of the tank. That'd be pretty cool.
So I'm cleaning out my dad's tank.
Yep.
So I'm slowly doing that, obviously, besides everything else that's going on in my life right now.
Yes. You sound like me. I'm like,
doing that.
Right.
And once I finally get it set up to kind of start cycling it again, it'll take like another month. So they have a while to stay in here. And only once I'm fully sure that the tank is good will I put them back in. I'll let my dad take them, because he's really he really wants them back really quickly, but this is kind of how we got to this situation in the first place.
Mhm.
Listen to Sophie
yeah.
being the adult. Oh my God, that's so awesome.
Dad, you're grounded.
Yes.
Yeah, I told him.
No
But
more fish.
Actually, the problem with these ones is that we won like a draw. So we won this draw, and then the guy asked us what type of corals we wanted. I obviously asked for totally like non-stinging corals, the ones that I know will do well, like zoas. I got the leather back here. And then he got those corals. So I was kind of trying to push it back still a few weeks, but when we won that draw, then we had no choice but to get the corals, and then he directly put them in his
Sure.
tank.
Yep. Well, I think you're doing all the right things.
Mhm.
I'm just curious how the corals, like obviously they're doing better in the healthier tank that you have created, but I'm just curious because, so many coral enthusiasts, again, lighting, temperature, all that stuff. I'm just curious how this goes because you could be proving some points that, haven't been proven before. Very cool. And either way, the seahorses are doing great, right? So
Well, I'll keep you guys updated.
they don't care.
And
And-
Doug got to have a little
Absolutely.
adventure,
Yeah.
mingling with the dangerous people.
Bonnie did ask, can they stay in that little enclosed net for any length of time?
Sure.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I would say yes. The only problem that I have with them is that since they're still on their frag plugs, they kind of sit sideways. They don't sit upwards. So I kind of have to rotate them a little bit. And also it kind of sags in the middle, which means they kind of all roll inwards. So we have that's a little bit hard to deal with. But other than that, I would say yeah.
Are they stinging each other? No, good, awesome. Because I've seen coral fights and it's not pretty, and it would put a lot of crazy crap into your tank. So don't let them fight each other. Keep them away from each other. And what about like cutting holes in the bottom or something to put the frag plugs through? Does that make sense?
Yes, I could do that, but I would prefer not to do that
Not to.
with the net,
Right, you wanna
just
keep
because
it,
I have used it for a lot of different things. So if I ruin it, then I won't get it back, and I would have to just buy a whole new contraption. I guess I could put mesh myself over it, but
Just put some rock rubble.
Well, Ray had a suggestion.
Put some rock rubble in the bottom. Doesn't take a lot, just enough so you can prop those mounts in the rock rubble. And if you
Is
don't
it
have rock
heavy,
rubble,
though?
pardon?
Is it heavy though?
No, when you're just rubble.
Rubble is just little pieces.
Broken up tiny pieces. Like if you don't
that's
have
the
any, I'll
only
make
problem, because this is already sagging. It's not meant to hold. So if I put more stuff in it, I don't know how long it'll hold.
okay. Put a piece,
Okay, so how about
you can put a piece of that gutter guard. Get it,
yeah, or
Put that in the
plastic,
bottom, put the rock
or
rubble on
anything,
that,
yeah.
and then prop the corals on that.
Yes, I agree. Like a little strip of plastic lining. I mean, just to keep them apart so they don't sting each other, get in a fight, or die because they're on their side or whatever. That's a very good. I like that, Ray.
Oh,
that's good.
Yeah, I'll probably do that. Actually, that sounds like a good idea.
If you
Okay.
don't have any,
And we see Zen.
if
Hi,
you
Zen.
don't have gutter guard right size, give me a buzz and I'll look and see if I have some of that. What do you call it? It's a craft plastic with little holes in. They do embroidery or.
Oh, for needlepoint mesh.
Yep.
I used to have a bunch of that downstairs, so that would also work. So if you haven't got the right size gutter guard, let me know on the email and I'll take a look, see if I still have any.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And they are
Awesome.
I think they're all stinging corals. I also have one acropora in there. So I think most of them are stinging corals. But yeah, I will try to figure out.
Well, you're keeping them away from the seahorses.
Unless the seahorse tries to jump back in.
Except for Dot, who's
So again, real quick with that. So you're saying that we can't see it in the picture. I'm going to make you big again just to show it. We can't see it, but nope, I didn't mean to make you go away. I meant to make you big. Sorry. So we can't see it, but you're saying that this mesh box is lower than the water.
Now it's not. I think I lifted it a little bit because it was just like that much under the surface, like the actual.
And she managed to get over the top.
She wriggled her way.
Stuff, and she was like, "Hold
I
on,
don't know why she felt.
I
don't know why she felt that was necessary because it really wasn't.
Because it's somewhere she hasn't been.
And that's all. Those are all my stinging corals, so it's not good for her to be in there.
But she didn't get stung, right?
I mean, not that I know of. No.
Right.
Yeah, she was just. They were kind of because it was kind of like night. I think most of them had closed, anyways.
Yes.
Right.
Gotcha.
So then there wasn't a very big problem with that.
Ray, you're fired.
That's not true.
Ray said because she's a female. No, Ray. No, we're not going there. Not on this show. But I do think it's cool. And I think that you were smart to raise it a little bit. And I mean, she gets stung one time. She's not going to go searching anymore. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Hasn't that net
I'm curious to see how the
soft aluminum tabs that fold over to hold it onto the side?
Yeah.
You should be able to fold it up so that it'll pull it up right to the rim of the tank.
Yeah, that's what I did. I pulled it up more. My water level is just really high right now because I had to add some extra water, so then the water level went really up. And so it's like really close to the surface of the tank. I think I'm going to bring it down a little bit because now I'm worried that she's going to come out of the tank. I don't think she would. There is like a bit of a lip on the tank, so I don't think she can really. But
So what I love is, as we're sitting here having this conversation, if you guys haven't noticed, Dot is patrolling.
Yeah.
She is going round and round the tank like, what are we doing here? This is my tank. What's this new thing? And she keeps going past. I mean, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I love it. She's amazing. I love her.
The water flow comes from like up there and it comes around. So she loves.
Yes, and I get that.
She loves just going around. There she is.
Yeah. There she comes.
Here she comes. Watch her. She's like, okay, I'm gonna look at this
look
for
in
a
there.
minute.
Now, how can I get back in there?
Oh, can I get it back up in there again? Nope. I'm just gonna take another cruise around the tank. Oh, she's so amazing.
They're so funny.
So great. I know it. Okay. So I think we're set. You've already fixed the problem where you've lifted the thing. And I want to know, definitely keep us updated as to how it goes with the coral, because, oh my God, if you could do what you're doing long term.
I'll take some pictures now, and then in like 1 or 2 weeks, I can compare them, see if they've gotten any better or worse. I should have taken some pictures at the very beginning. I didn't think of that, and so now I don't have pictures from the very beginning, but...
Look! Dot said, you guys tried to say I go around and around. Look, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right here just to show you guys. Yeah. All right. Anyways, okay. Yes. Sophie, keep us updated. And what you're doing is awesome. Keep the tank clean. Keep it good for the seahorses. Yeah. And, we'll see how it goes for your dad's coral, because you're trying to save a squirrel.
Yeah, no, it's the seahorses are the main And then
Yeah.
Yes.
Their house.
Exactly. Yes. All right, Holly, go ahead and start us off. What are we dealing with? Because Holly has been texting in our group chat, and I mean, if you can't see, you guys, I'm exhausted. I haven't had a chance to look, so I'm coming into this fresh with all of you watching. Holly, what's
Okay,
going
so
on?
actually, it's not really a new issue. It's something I brought up before. My
Okay.
RODI unit, I'm like
Yes.
so done. I am so over it. I no longer care if I have perfect TDS, is the point it's gotten to. Because if you'll remember, like some months back, I discovered that the TDS meter that's built into it wasn't
Yes.
correct. I got a
Right.
handheld, which I figured out works because if I read on distilled water, it gives me 0. So trust it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So after I figured out the TDS meter wasn't working, I'm like, okay, so now I need to start changing out my filter stuff. So the first thing I did was I changed out my DI resin in one of the canisters and I rotated them. I put new DI resin, but it wasn't brand new DI resin. It was a pack that I'd had and not
wait,
used.
what is this that you're talking about? The DI resin.
It makes reverse osmosis water.
I'll find a picture while you're
Yeah.
talking,
Okay.
So
Holly.
mine
DI
comes
and I,
Bulk Reef Supply. So they have pictures on there. So maybe you can show a picture from Bulk Reef Supply. That's the one I have. So
I'm looking it up right now.
anyway, I replaced one of the canisters with new DI resin, but it wasn't brand new. Like I said, it was a pack that I'd had for probably 6 months to a year, and I just never opened it. So I rotated the canisters. I have 2 canisters of DI resin. Okay. Then I was still getting TDS. And at that point, Ray said to me that the DI resin can stop working if it's old, even if you haven't used it, it expires. So I bought brand new DI resin and I replaced both canisters. So now I have all brand new DI resin. I run.
Okay, pause. Let me show everyone, including Sophie, what we're talking about. All right, if I'm able to. Okay. So, oh shit. You guys see it?
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So,
So I
Sophie,
have
the
let's
RODI
say
unit.
like the 5 stage.
Okay.
Mine's actually like 6 maybe, but it pretty much looks like that.
But you have filters, you have
Yes.
resins,
And
you have whatever,
and 2
and the DI
membranes. The
stage.
DI is like sand. That's the very last step.
Here's a replacement.
Okay, so anyway, so now I have all brand new DI resin, and I was still reading TDS, right about 30-ish. So I'm like, okay, well, I haven't changed the other filters in a while. And what those are, there's 2 carbon blocks and like fuzzy filter. I forget what that one's called.
there's a pre-filter to get the sediment out.
That's
Right. And
probably it.
also Sophie and anybody,
The carbon
Sophie and
filters will
anybody
come after
watching.
the sediment filter, and
Yes.
then your deionizing cartridges. But your membrane is the very first stage. So,
Mhm.
have you?
Well, I
taken the
haven't
water-
finished yet. Let me
Well,
go
hang
step
on,
by
hang on.
step.
I want to say, time out. I want to say for anybody, this is if you have, so the reason as we go through this conversation, Holly, I think is going to come to the conclusion that she doesn't want to use it anymore. Someone like me has to use it. I don't have a choice. I either have to use something like this or use distilled water because the TDS of my tap water, if you get a TDS meter and you test your tap water, mine is like almost 500. Okay? No, you can't have 500. You want zero, right? So it does depend on where you live. It depends on your water quality, meaning out of the tap, not what you're doing in the tank. But you can't just take water from the faucet and use it on a Seahorse tank because A, you probably need to dechlorinate it. And then B, if it has this high TDS, then you're just asking for problems, organics, all the stuff. So in this case, Holly's original tap water TDS is what?
Generally between 50 and about 120 normally. It
And
varies.
remember, guys, mine is 500. So I'm in Indiana. She's in California. She has this already clean water that she's running through in our ODI system just to be safe. Whereas I have to. If I put tap water in my tank, even with Prime, it would be a disaster. So go on, Holly.
Okay,
Sorry.
so where I left off at, so I replaced the DI resin. I was still getting a reading of around 30 on my TDS. So I went ahead and bought a replacement kit for that filter and the two carbon blocks. So I replaced those three things. And then the first canister, which is where the filter thing goes in, the fuzzy part, it started leaking. and, so, and so we took it apart. And let me tell you, taking this thing apart is no fun. It's hard. It's stuff. It's a mess. So anyway, my husband Scott, I had him. Well, can you check and make sure the rubber seal is okay? And da da da. And he said it might have had a little bit of sediment on it or something to where it wasn't sealing right. So he played with it a little bit, put it back in there. We got everything screwed back on that canister, and it was still leaking a little bit. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should get a new rubber seal for it. And Scott says, well, maybe you should get an extra canister just in case something happens and you need to change out a canister. And I never did because I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what more money I'm going to spend because I'm still getting TDS reading, even though I replaced those other things. So now I'm like, okay, now I have to splurge. What I was trying to avoid is replacing the membranes because they're very expensive. So I have two membranes. They're 75 gallon per day each. So my total system is 150 gallons per day. So it requires two membranes. So I ordered the membranes. So they come like, what is it, a week or so later. So this is a period over weeks of time. So the membranes came, take everything apart, put the membranes in, start flushing the system, and one of the hoses starts leaking between the membranes. So figure out where the water is coming from. It's from this little valve thingy that where you plug in the line. And
Oh,
so
yep.
I go on the company's website and I got into a chat with somebody, and she asked me, how long have you had your system? Did I say, well, about 3 years? She says, let me check if it's under warranty, da da da, blah, blah, blah. So she comes back and I sent her a picture of the part that was leaking. So she says, oh, good news. We're going to send you another one. Okay, so ends up sending me this. In the meantime, we have towels on the counter. We're trying to catch the water. I still need to make RODI water, so it's not like I'm going to stop using it, because I have to use it, but water's leaking. So anyway, so Scott detaches the little hose from that part, and he cuts a piece off of it and sticks it back in the thing, and it quit leaking. And so
Wow.
then I'm like, oh, cool. So now I don't have any leaks, but I have this part coming. Then,
Right.
like the next day or 2 days later, it starts leaking from the flush valve. I'm like, oh, great, here comes
Yeah.
another flood. So get the towel, blah, blah.
Right.
And I tilted the membrane thing, it folds like this, so you can tilt it. I folded it up. The thing stopped leaking. It doesn't leak at all anymore. No leaks. But even though I've replaced both the membranes, every single filter, all the DI resin, I'm still getting a reading that varies from right now it's running an average of 25-ish, 30, but sometimes I'll get a 10 or a 15 or a
So are you have you tested it on distilled or actually used the stuff you can buy to test it?
yes, I on distilled water it'll read 0.
It's 0.
But I was asking Ray too. Now you've been to my house. You know how dirty things get here.
Yes.
So usually there'll
Right.
be a little bit of tree crap or something in my buckets. And so it'll fall in sometimes when I'm making the water, like little tiny dirt pieces or whatever. That caused
Right.
the TDS. I'm wondering if I put the output into a glass of water, made a glass of water instead of a bucket, if maybe it's dirty because of the buckets. What do you think? Or would that not make
That
a
is
difference?
possible. No, I feel like Ray thoughts. Ray wasn't
It
listening.
would have to be.
Can TDS be
I
so
was
if you have
listening.
a bucket that's nasty?
I was listening. Now,
Oh,
depending on how much is in there and just what it is, it's possible that it might affect it some, but I'm still kind of leery on there. However, you have replaced everything. So if it's all in the right order, then the last thing that I would say is when you put in a new membrane, it takes some time before it actually will function properly. It has to get broken in before it's capable of lowering the TDS.
Yeah.
And
But it's been almost
until
3
that time,
weeks. It should be broke in by now. I mean,
I
when
would,
I first ran it, it was high TDS, but I followed the video and the instructions they give you. I made like 5 gallons of water on it, and then I mean, the TDS dropped, from when I first put it in. But I mean, we're now talking, I want to say close to 3 weeks after the fact that I
how
put the
many,
new membranes in.
how many gallons would that translate to?
making her do math.
I'd say
Ray,
probably
no,
2
we
to
don't do math.
300 maybe.
Okay, that should have broken it in by now.
I'm sure it should have. I've had like 3 water changes and plus all the water I make every week. So, I mean,
Right.
that's a lot of water. I think I go through probably 100 gallons a week, maybe. So,
When I change a membrane, I go through probably 2 refills of my 55-gallon olive barrel. And by that time, then the TDS is fine. The only problem is that when the membrane is being broken in, I like to break in a new membrane with old cartridges. because while it's being broken in, it's passing high TDS through, which then is being removed by the deionizing cartridges. And it's using up those DI cartridges fast in that break-in period.
Mhm.
Uh, so I like to
Yeah,
You always have to replace the DI sooner than any
Yeah.
other
I
part,
read
for
that.
sure.
But you know what? I ran it without the DI resin to
Okay.
break it in because
Yeah.
it said to do that to save your DI resin.
Uh-huh.
So I ran it on the other mode, so it wasn't going
Did
to
you
the
measure
DI.
the output
But
at the start, the TDS output through the membranes at the start of doing that, and then before you hooked into the DI cartridges? Did you measure the TDI again then to see what the difference was and to know that the membrane was actually
it
functioning
was high. I know it was up around 100.
even after?
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. Hang on, time out. So if you're shit, we lost Holly. Okay, hang on. Let me try to get her back.
Here I am.
All right, there's Holly. Okay, so real quick, here's my confusion. If your TDS is pretty low to start with, what is it average tap? 50?
Yeah, between 50 and 100
Okay.
usually.
So here's my original question. If she has tap water that is 50 TDS and she runs it through just the not DI, but the first chambers, and it's 100, there's a problem with the machine.
Well, the water
Or the
was
TDS
100
meter.
that day too. So I'm saying,
okay,
what
okay.
TDS
It didn't
the
make any
TDS
difference.
I get varies on what the incoming TDS is. So it's not taking it to zero, but on a day when the TDS is lower coming out of the faucet, it's also lower coming out of the RODI.
That's interesting. It's jumping from 50 to 100, though. I mean, that's.
That
Anyways,
depends on
that
the
doesn't
water
matter. Go on.
treatment situation that's there. That's a
Yep.
common
Yeah.
thing to vary
Yep.
like that.
Okay. But so basically, her membranes are doing nothing because it went from 100 to 100.
Yeah.
And then she adds the DI and
Well,
it's doing all the
You
work.
don't add the DI if the membrane's not bringing it down in the first place.
So the membrane's the problem.
Yeah, it's either not inserted right, or there's too much pressure, or not enough pressure, or there's something, some imperfection that's in there. Something has lodged in there that's not allowing it to function properly. I would say dismantle the membrane system again. Make sure it's all clean and flushed, and make sure there's no impediments in there of any kind. Put it back in, run it again, and without the RODI, or without the DI cartridges, and actually without even the sediment filter and everything, just strictly after the membrane. And you run it there, and you run it like that until you get that TDS to go down. If that
How much should it go down just through
So
those
it's got to
filters?
flush when I run it. When I flush the membrane, see, it's got a
Yeah.
thing that you twist
Yep.
to flush the membrane. So when you do that, it's only running through the membrane, right?
Right.
Not all the
It
other
should be, yeah.
filters. Okay, that's what I thought.
Well,
So how much should it go down with just the filtration?
well, that
without
depends.
the DI?
First of all, that depends on the maker of the product. It also depends on the actual membranes themselves. Depends how long it's been run through. I'm guessing, like for me, to start off at 104, before my RODI, I think I'm down around 20, 22, something like that. So I'm talking about
Ray.
3/4 of the way down on the membrane, and then the rest of the way goes with the deionizing cartridges.
Ray, I'm going to need more exact numbers. You're supposed to be the expert here. I need 0.22. Okay. All right. Go on. Go on. Sorry.
But there's no point in
Holly,
hooking
go
it
on
up
with
to
your
the.
questions and thoughts.
So yeah, so I'm using it still, and my TDS readings have been variable, but they're not like on my TDS meter, the handheld one. It's got a green zone and a red zone besides giving you the number. I don't know what that means, but it feels better when it's in the green. And so far, it's staying in the green, which I think is below 40. I think when it hits 40, it hits red. So I kind of given up for now because I spent like a couple $100 on changing all the filters. I feel like I bought a brand new thing.
Right.
And I'm like, I just don't want to dump any more money into
here,
this.
here,
I feel like I've tried everything, and I
so-
don't know what the problem is.
So before we hear from Ray, I have a question for Chris Carey because I see Chris Carey's here. Hi, Chris Carey. Does anyone know what like the ideal? Obviously, the ideal TDS to a Seahorse steak is 0, because, and we need to discuss also. Another Chris made a comment. You can bring it down to 0 with something from Walmart, and then add your additives. And Ray, you said no additives in a Seahorse tank. I use
Why?
additives, but we'll discuss that in a minute. What I want to know right now is there an ideal, like, if your TDS goes over 20, then you can't use the water. I mean, obviously you still can, but it's a bad idea to use the
Apparently, I
water.
can because I didn't know that my meter wasn't working. So it's probably been like that.
Yeah,
I'd say for over a year,
and
maybe
the
2
seahorses are
years.
fine. I mean,
Yeah. So I'm
and
like,
again, hey, anybody new out there? Anybody new out there? If you have high TDS water like mine, 400, 500, ridiculous, bad water out of the tap. Do not think that just because you can do an average Seahorse or an average tank, sorry, like freshwater, even a coral tank, whatever, don't think you can do Seahorses with that water. You need to break that down or buy distilled.
now I will say the
You got
first
something
2
like
years.
Holly's, which is like 10 to 40. I mean,
Well, the first 2 years of Seahorse keeping, I didn't have my RODI unit.
but your water
I used
never
I
reaches
used
100.
tap water and dechlorinator water conditioner for fish, which I still use for my freshwater tanks. So it's a fluval thing that dechlorinates the water, and I was using that. And then after I'd had the Seahorses a couple years, I finally invested in the RODI thing.
And it's been a shit storm for you. I get it. I
And
get it.
yeah, and I think it probably worked great for the first year. So I did replace some things. I've replaced the DI resin a couple times. I replaced the carbon blocks and that pre-filter or whatever
Yep.
they call it. I've replaced that once before. I've had the whole system, I want to say about 3 years, maybe going on 4. I had never replaced the membranes, but now that I found out, I was still getting TDS, I'm like, well, it's probably time to replace the membranes too. And so when I did that and everything's still reading
Right.
TDS, I'm like, well, what is there left unless in the time that I was waiting for those filters to arrive,
The
it used
DI.
up the DI resin, but
Yep.
the DI resin has not changed color. I've
Yeah,
changed.
I don't buy that changing
So
color crap.
I think the DI resin was only a couple weeks old, brand new by the time the other filters came. So I don't think I would have used it up that fast.
So I think there's something going on with your system, just to be
Mhm.
real. Like I don't think it's your fault. I think there's just something going
There's
on with your
something
system.
wrong.
Yes.
I'm wondering if something's leaking, like
Yeah.
going into somewhere where
No.
it shouldn't.
Yeah.
You
Or
got to start.
But what I would say is there's comments in the private chat.
I know the hoses are hooked up right because Scott did it for me and we
Yep.
took pictures and looked online and he's good at that kind of thing. So I know they're in the right place.
You know, I'm not going to be able to tell you where you've got it hooked up wrong because Lord help me, I probably got the back end and the front end.
You have to
But
start
what
at
I
the,
would
at the
say is,
beginning.
hang on. Ray, hang on. What I was going to say is, I really think it's a really important thing for people to think about your own water quality. And you can do that with as easy as getting a TDS meter and determining it. Ray made the point that Sophie's not using any kind of RODI system, but the TDS where Ray and Sophie live is 104. The TDS where Holly lives goes from 50 to 100. I'm like, woo! I wish I had that shit because mine
so really
is
that
4
TDS
to
is okay then.
500. If I tried to put that in a Seahorse tank, it would not work out. However, Sophie can make it work because her TDS is so much lower. Go ahead,
Obviously,
Ollie.
0 is better, but it's acceptable what
Yeah.
we do have. But you have to get
Yes.
back. We're jumping all over here. You have to start with the basics, and you start with the very first part. You have to go back to the membranes, and you have to find out
Okay.
if the membrane is working first. If the membrane isn't doing its job, then all the rest is immaterial.
So what should she have done?
So
when
if
she
I
figured
get
out
a
that the membrane wasn't
TDS,
working?
so if I get a TDS reading when I'm flushing the membrane, that tells me that it's the membrane.
Just to be on the safe side, I don't know the design of your setup. I know what mine is. And for me, I disconnect the line that starts feeding the sediment filter. So it's coming from the membrane, going to the sediment filter. You push in on the little collar and pull the tube out, and you let the sample run for 5-10 minutes, and then collect some, and then measure the TDS. And I'm estimating you should have a drop of about 75% from your input to what's coming out after the membrane before the sediment filter.
I'll try that because I have a flush. It's easy for me to do that because I have a valve that shuts
I
it
don't
off.
trust that. I would still
disconnect
it, going to the sediment filter, which is your first filter in line. Your sediment filter comes first. Your 2 carbon blocks will be next, and then your 2 resin cartridges. Okay, so you have a 6-stage unit.
Yeah.
Your first stage is your membranes. Your second stage is the sediment. Your third and fourth is the 2 carbon blocks. Your fifth and sixth are the 2 ionizing, deionizing. But there's no
I'll try
point
that
in
and see what happens.
worrying about the rest of it until you know about the first part.
Yeah.
But what do you do? If you just can't figure it out.
Can't figure out what? If it doesn't go down, well then either she hasn't got something hooked up right for the membranes, or the membranes are defective. But I personally haven't heard of defective membranes.
So what are you thinking ultimately, Ray?
There may be something that is blocking something in the pathway that's interfering with the flow through the membranes.
Gotcha.
My mind, I have to stop, but there's a flow restrictor in there, and if there's anything that gets caught in that flow restrictor, then that's going to reduce the efficiency of the membrane. But I actually would think that if it slowed up the flow, then it would make it better. But in fact, if your pressure drops off too much, then the membrane won't work. For instance, if I think most of them will tell you if your water pressure is below 45 psi, you have a booster on
Yes.
it in order to get the
And you
pressure.
Yep.
get a
Well,
yeah,
if you have
100%.
something that's in that flow restrictor or something in the line going to the membranes that is reducing that pressure, then you can be measuring it before that point and seeing your 60 psi when in fact it may not be at the membranes. So, and that's usually something that you can actually take it apart and flush everything manually, not connected in the system, but you can flush the hoses just and blow through, put some water in your mouth and blow through to make sure it's going through without any restriction. And anything else, anything solid, usually you can see through, and you can definitely see through the restrictor. So it's just a case of just putting the effort into looking for something. You don't know what you're looking for, but you're looking for something that's restricting that flow. If, however,
That
if
makes
however,
sense. But what a pain in the butt.
if you are getting about a 75% reduction in the TDS from input to the membranes and then the output, then I would say it's probably not going to be, the problem isn't going to be in the membrane.
Mhm.
It's probably going to be
Then it has to be somewhere after that. But
Somewhere else, yeah.
I would bet
After
more
that
on a
point.
membrane system, not the membrane itself, but something causing a problem. So that
Something stuck in a line, maybe, or something.
like, I know for sure if the pressure gets too low, it's not going to work.
Hmm. Well, my pressure reader, when I'm flushing the line, it reads 20. And when I'm making the RODI water, it reads 60. I've seen it run 45 to 50, used to be the average, but lately it runs 60.
No, I would still disconnect that line and get it before it's going through anything. It's the only safe way I know of.
Now,
Mhm.
Holly, if you say
Uh-huh.
your TDS is 50 to 100, that's what you said. Why
Yeah,
did you
depending
choose
on
to
the day.
start doing RODI water?
Because as seahorse keepers, when I started, everyone said you want your TDS to
yes.
be 0.
You do.
And I was told if your TDS gets to be like 2 or 3, 4, like right in that range, you want to change out your RODI resin and filters and
So
things to bring it
so
back
real
down to
quick, I
0.
just want to admit publicly that I went through I think 5 or 6 TDI or I'm sorry, of yeah, no,
TDS,
of the what oh God, my words. RODI
RODI,
systems because my water is so bad.
yeah.
I told you guys like 400 to 500 TDS. I went through 4 or 5 and I always had problems. And it was constantly the DI was running out, or all of a sudden the membranes weren't working, or there was a leak, or there was this, that, and the other. And I replaced it.
So it's not just
It's
me.
not.
These things are a
It's
pain in the
not.
butt.
And but I have much higher TDS. So I couldn't get away with it.
Mhm.
Like if mine doesn't work, I can't keep seahorses. Like you can't keep them with 400 TDS. You just can't. 500? No. So
Mhm.
I went to distilled water and it's expensive and it's well, it's not a pain in the butt. It's much easier. It's just more expensive, right? That's the bottom line. So I buy distilled water. I don't do TDS anymore. I don't do the RODI. I just buy distilled water.
But don't you need a lot of it for a
Yes.
water change, though? Like, how do you buy it? Because here I only see it in gallon jugs. Like, can you get great big containers of it
So
too?
all the
How do you
stores
do
near
that?
me know me and I order through their suppliers. That's my secret. I mean, I literally, and I'm not to that point now. I only have 2 tanks, right, guys? But when I had 10,
Mhm.
I literally had, there's a local store called Harvest Market near me, and I talked to the manager
Mhm.
and we worked it out, and I was like, I keep coming here and you're out of distilled water and I really need it. I have to have it. And so
Yeah,
she would order for me. In my current position in
nice.
my job, I can do that for people, right? If you talk to the manager of a store, they can order extra if they
Yeah,
know you're going to buy it. And
yeah,
that's what I would do. I would have her order me a pallet
yeah.
of freaking distilled water.
And it comes in the gallon jug, so you have to deal
It's a
with all
pain in
those
the
gallon
butt. It
jugs.
is. It is, but
Oh,
it's not worse than,
yeah, but so is the
but
RODI
it's,
unit.
well, it depends. If your RODI is working, that's the better bet. You know, I mean, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's why I say if it's 30, if I know 30's okay, 35, 30, if that's okay, I'll just keep
Oh my
letting
God.
it go. If it gets if it gets bigger, I'd have to do something
Hey
else.
guys, I'm so sorry. I think I was hitting a button with my arm. There's a bunch of weird stuff.
Why? What happened?
Anyways, in the chat. Sorry about the chat. Anyways, point being, yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. If you're in Canada and
Mhm.
you're Ray or Sophie and your TDS is so low that you can just, make it work. If you're in California, Holly, if I were you, I would. You've already had situations.
Well, see, I live in the
Yes,
mountains. I have mountain
right.
spring water. It's not the same for all of California, but our water comes from underground springs.
Oh,
But it is treated with chloramines, so I have to get those out. And like I said, they do, I mean, I live in the woods. There's tons of dirt. There's pieces of trees everywhere. So sometimes they do flush the lines, the water company does, and then the TDS will go up. And that's why it varies so much, I
gotcha.
think. So I need to be aware of it, but I think that was a good question when you were asking, is there a
And
safe
that's what I want to
TDS?
know.
Like what is the safe?
That's what I want to know is we need Chris Carey in here. We want Ray's opinion. Just like, is there's, I mean, as long as you're using prime to dechlorinate, any water will work. How many people kept seahorses without
Mhm,
an RODI unit and lived in Indiana and had 400 TDS, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm,
it depends on the seahorse, it depends on the situation, it depends on everything, right? But I think ultimately, in my opinion, if you're capping 100, then it's time to do something else. That's my personal
mhm,
opinion.
mhm,
Don't quote me because I don't know. But I would just say, like, you guys all are okay. I'm not. I have to do either
mhm,
distilled or RDI because it wouldn't work with 4 to 500 TDS. So I just think you need to know your water, get a water company report, and then test your TDS from the tap, and then make your decisions. I think is the end result. Would you guys agree? And Holly, for you in this
mhm.
situation, I'm gonna say you're good, and or buy distilled. I mean, it's been such a
Yeah.
mess with this RDI unit.
No, it's like I said, I'm tired of
Yeah,
messing with it. I mean, we spent all
yeah,
day on changing out the membranes because you hook up the hoses. Oh, here's a leak here. Okay, now this isn't leaking. Now that's leaking. Now this, now that. Oh, did we put, now this canister has a leak. Is the rubber seal in right? I'm like, oh, what a pain this whole thing is. It took like literally a whole day. And then they send me a replacement part and I haven't put it on because that part's not leaking anymore.
right.
it decided to say, I'm like, it reminds me of, my husband, he'll work on cars, he does his Volkswagens and stuff. He'll do all the engine stuff, but he won't touch electrical because he says anything where you wiggle a wire and it works. I
Right.
don't.
Right.
And that's how I feel about the RODI thing. It's like, oh, don't touch it. Count 10 and walk away.
And
It's
for
working
me,
right now.
in my again, guys, it's different. Sophie is pulling this stuff off with nothing. I mean, she's just pulling it off because of her TDS of her tap water in Canada. In my tap water in Indiana, if I tried that, it would not work. I couldn't do discus. I couldn't do seahorses. I couldn't do any of that. No. So I tried the RODI route. It worked so well for so many years. But then when it stopped working and I kept replacing and buying new units and it was just a mess. And then I said, you know what? I'm spending how much on units? How much on replacements? How much on this? Now, how much would it cost to just buy $30 to $40 based on my tank sizes and my water changes of distilled water every week? It was a better option for me. Up to you what you want to do, for sure. And I see you guys talking in the comment section. Do we want to talk any more about RDI before we move on to favorite seahorse?
I've had my say.
Get
I give
back
up
to me
on
when you
it.
do that testing and find out. And maybe just out of curiosity, you were talking about that flush bit and you were measuring that. Flush for a while first. Before you flush, measure the input that's going to the membrane. Then flush for a while, measure that output, then disconnect that line to the sediment filter and let it run again for about 5 minutes and measure it again and record those 3 different readings.
See,
absolutely. Or just go by distilled. Go on, Ray.
By the way, we've got 5-gallon containers of RODI water or
no, you can
distilled water, and you can get bigger
too.
ones than that.
I just made an agreement with my local store because it was easier. Like I didn't want to go there and it be out. So, I needed it. They had it. They could get it. We set up an agreement.
So probably like the people that do like the water delivery to your house, that kind of, is that who you would talk to for that, Ray, to get the whole amount? Yeah, but you're getting them in 1 gallon things. You said, I mean, like, if you want the big jugs, then somebody like
the
what is it, Alhambra or something, somebody like that.
And because there's someone else, and I want to know if you ever watch this channel, whoever you are, there's someone else right near me that does saltwater. Because there have been times where I've gone in there before I made the agreement when I had saltwater and seahorses, and I would go in there to buy distilled, and it was all sold out. And they would be like, this guy bought a whole, pallet. And I'd be like, what? No, I need it too. So there's someone else doing saltwater near me. All right, let's move on. What's your favorite?
Oh, I do have something real quick for Bonnie. Is she's saying she doesn't know that they would leak the RODI things. Well, what it is because they have so many little plastic hoses running everywhere and valves and things. And so if it's not connected right, if it's not sitting in the thing, because when you change out the membranes,
you have to disconnect.
You have to take the little hose, you have to disconnect the little hoses. So if you don't get them back in just right, or like Scott says, if maybe he says, I don't know, is something stuck in that little valve thing or what? There's just so many little things to go wrong.
Anything can happen. Anything. All right, Tanya wants to know what's your favorite seahorse breed?
For me, it's easy.
All
The
right.
Erectus.
Yeah, me too.
I love them. Their personalities. That's what won
For
me
Right.
most
over.
people, it's going to be Erectus because that's all they can get.
Right. And Ray, you've had how many different species?
7.
Which are they?
Cool boy. Well,
We got
the
Reed-eye.
Zostera, the
Go ahead, name
Abdominalis,
them off. Start over and name them off from the beginning. You've had Abdominalis.
Zostera, Barbs, Angustus, Combs, Reed-eye, and Erectus.
That's 7.
Well, I told you.
Nice. All right. So which was your favorite and why?
Oh, I guess it's hard. When you like seahorses, you kind of like them all. But there might be a slight favoritism towards the Reed-eye because it was my first. And there'll be some to the Abdominalis because it's so large. The male belly is just so different. And the fact that they're by far and away the easiest one to
To
keep.
keep. Yep. If you can keep the temperature low, Abdominalis are the ones that, they're the
To keep
easiest.
the temperature from going above 68, you're fine.
Yep. Yep. Miss Sophie.
I mean,
Because you've kept all these seahorse species, so which
I
one's
know,
your
right?
favorite?
I have so many to choose out of. Well, I obviously am partial to Erectus.
Yes.
Because that's the only one I've had, and that would be kind of sad to not say that I prefer them with my seahorse behind me.
But you know about all the other species.
I'll say I've had a couple different. The Reed-eye are really
Yes.
pretty. I really liked the Reed-eye, but they did not have the personality my Erectus
They were kind of
had,
snobby.
I think.
I think it depends on the one you
Yeah,
have.
they weren't as interested in me. They didn't come like a dog that say, "Oh,
No,
Mom, you know
but
what
I
I'm
agree
saying?"
with Ray's stance that you just said. What was that, Ray?
It depends on the individuals that you get. It's
Yep.
like people. Not all people are the same. Well, the
And
same
it's
thing
not-
with the seahorses. You get a certain species of seahorse, and one person is seeing one thing in them, another person has another batch, the same species, but he's seeing something else, or pardon me, she seeing something else. So you can't say when you're
This
making a statement that
species, right?
these ones do this. Well, your particular ones do that.
So
But
a
we don't all
perfect
do that.
example, and I agree with Ray 100%. A perfect example is I had hippocampus barbary that were so picky and prissy, and they would not eat off the floor. No, no tough love. I don't care if it was a week. They would not eat off the floor. I had to make sure that food was in suspension. Whereas he had Barbary that were like Erectus, and they ate like pigs off the floor everywhere. No, I think it has to do with where they're bred, how they're bred, and we all do captive bred, of course. But like the breeding of them, I think, is the key. Would you disagree, Ray?
I still think it's more of something that's just naturally in each individual.
I get that. There is
Their own
individual
personality.
differences, but how can you have a batch of seahorses that act differently than another completely same batch of seahorses
Well, you look at
from a
people
different
that
breeder?
brought up in different ways. You look in the slums and see what the end result is of those kids that are once they're adults, and then you look at
So
one that's,
I
you know,
get what you're saying. I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you mean nature versus nurture, or
right. I think both can have an effect on it, but I think there's an instinct in them, just like their feeding instinct that they prefer to have those uh, the live food until you get them into captivity and you bring up the new ones on the frozen. That's a, a culturable, trainable thing, but is things like the Syria and so on is a part of their uh, inbreeding that's been passed on for centuries.
But
And
that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. You're
that,
saying
a
it's
lot of that is
inbreeding.
the personality.
Okay, okay, but what I'm saying is, how could I get Barbary seahorses or Barbary, however you want to say it, that are the same species as the ones you kept that may have come from a different breeder, but they're the same genetics. They're the same. Like if we got Graham Shorten here, he would dissect them and say they are the same species of seahorse, right?
Okay.
They may have come from different locations, different breeders, which I think makes the difference because mine would not eat a piece of frozen mysis without eyeballs.
Okay.
Period.
I would
Whereas
agree
yours
with your
would.
concept if you could show me that in the wild, certain areas of the same lagoon, they were all the same and ate all the same way. But I suspect that there are some areas because of just the way, uh, how do I say it? Like basically in a given area, seahorses don't travel very far. Occasionally, storms and that can push them on somewhere, but basically, they live their whole lives within a very small
Disagree.
area.
Go ahead.
No, most of them do, and that's not saying all of them do. But I'm just saying that until you can show me that that doesn't happen, that they don't have different feeding patterns in a similar uh, habitat, but a separated habitat. Until you can show me that, I can't agree with it.
Okay, so I would first say disagree with they stay in the same place for their whole lives. Don't agree at all. I think that most of the new species they come up with in new places, Graham Short has proved this, end up being the same species, just dislocated. But as far as our conversation, I don't know. I'm not gonna, I don't have the answers. I just think that it does depend on the area they came from, genetics, and species doesn't define all. Let's just say it that way, right?
Right,
Species because personality matters, like you said, and
Mhm.
it just is interesting to me that I had multiple, not just one Barbary that would only eat the eyeballs and da da da, that were raised by the same person, same facility, came from the same source, and yours are coming from a different source for sure, and yours act like a rectus. It's just interesting. I don't have an answer. I don't
did
even
you
have a question.
Well, and I've only had the seahorses I had. I mean, most of my seahorses have
Right.
been erectus, because I raised them. So I've had dwarves and I had two reedi. And so
Well,
I don't know
here
what
you
other
go.
reedi
No,
would
no,
be like besides the
but I
two
have
that
a
I
perfect
have,
example to
you
relate to
know.
you, Holly. I have
Mhm,
never, before I met you, before I
mhm,
kept your seahorses, which I love, but before
mhm,
that happened, I had
mhm.
never seen a rectus that laid down, that didn't swim up.
Like Dandy
Right.
sleeps laying down. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
seahorses I got from Holly, they well,
Mhm.
actually that's not true. But Holly's seahorses don't like to swim up. They prefer to stay on the ground. Where
Mhm.
every
Except for Sadie, who loves to swim, so but she was raised with all the others. So I don't know
I don't
why
either.
she's different. She acts normal, but yeah, most of the other ones, they like to stay near the bottom of the tank, and when they sleep, they want to sleep laying down, like they were in a bed.
And
or
there's nothing
something.
wrong with that. I just had never, I was like, what's
It's
wrong
just
with
odd.
the seahorse? Why is it going to bed on its head? I mean, like, that doesn't even make sense to me. So there's no answer. It was just an interesting question. Thank you, Tanya, for the interesting question.
Mhm.
You know, the breed doesn't really matter. It's the seahorses you get, and you have to get to know your seahorses, and then you develop this, I don't want to say relationship, they're seahorses. But I mean, you learn them, they learn you, and then you figure out an amazing tank, right? I guess that's the answer. Anybody else have anything else on that? Chris Carey said his favorite species are whitey. Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't see it. Reed eye and whitey eye is a close second. Why reed eye?
Mhm.
Because I would say my favorite are Barbori, just because they were my princesses. Oh my god, they were my little babies. I hand fed them. It was ridiculous. It wasn't a good situation for a normal seahorse keeper because I babied them to death. The reed eye though were very much more colorful and prettier, and had these exotic designs.
Mhm.
And Ray would argue with me that abdominalis have those, but I never wanted
Mhm.
to keep a
They're
but I
very
never
pretty.
wanted to keep abdominalis.
Abs were never colorful.
Well,
They were so big belly, and the belly is always yellow.
and they have designs and just cool features, but I never wanted abdominalis because I did my research and I knew I keep my tanks at room temperature, right? I don't have chillers, I don't have heaters.
Mhm.
Literally, I just set my house what I'm comfortable with, and the tanks go from there. And I make sure it's under 74 degrees. But I don't have to do the chiller heater thing. And if I had abdominalis, I would have to, right? So it's interesting. And I would like a more experience with different species. I wish we had more species that were captive bred. And, Sophie, we're going to need you to grow up a bit more quickly and get on it. You're already starting with the erectus, but we need you to get more species and start captive breeding and provide them
One
all to
day
us.
I'll get more species so we can grow more of them.
Watch, you guys. She's going to be like the next serious breeder. I guarantee it. But
I have to get through school first. And then
I won't argue with that. Mom, don't kill me. I won't argue with that. But
We need a source for them too.
what?
Right now, we don't have a source for others.
Well, but I would say this.
But we can order from Australia.
No, I would say this. I literally have the phone numbers of people, right? If anybody is interested in becoming a commercial breeder or, expanding their hobbyist breeding to the next level, if you're willing to buy multiple seahorses, you can't buy two of a species from Australia. You can't buy two, seahorses from Indonesia. But
Has
it
to
has
be a
to
bulk
be
order.
multiple. But if you're serious and if anybody ever wants to, I know all the people, at least now. Don't, if you watch this in 10 years, probably not. But I'm just saying right now, if you're that person and you're trying to expand, I will connect you with the people you need. I will get you first generation captive bred or fresh seahorses that would be minuscule, because we don't want to take from the ocean, but we have to in pairs. So if you know what you're doing and you're trying to set up a captive breeding operation, all I'm saying is I can help you. Contact me.
all right.
That's
Well,
it.
in 15 years, maybe I'll come to you and I'll
Yes.
ask for your contacts. So then I
2
can.
years, you guys, watch. 2 years, she's gonna be the one. Watch.
I don't think my parents would let me.
I get it.
if you're still living with your parents 10 or 15 years from now, there's something wrong.
No, but
I could never live with my parents to that age.
No,
I
no
could.
one's
Oh my God.
It'll take her that long to get
yeah,
through
I need to get
school.
through school.
If she's talking college
Yes.
and all that, I could see it. It'd be hard to keep seahorses living
You
in a
can't bring
dorm.
animals into a dorm. Well, depends, but like my
Yeah.
sister goes to Webster.
A goldfish, maybe.
They come and they do like room checks.
Yeah.
So
I'm working with a fellow right now that has seahorses in his
Well, it
dorm.
depends on the college. It depends on where you're at. Depends on the
Oh.
laws. Yeah.
also the rooms are really small.
Yeah.
Like they're really, really
Yes.
small. So
Yeah. No, I had
That's
friends
his
in the
complaint
dorm.
too, because he can't set up a large tank with a filtration system. He's got a small tank and he has to keep changing the water all the time.
Boo-hoo! That's life. No, I'm sorry. That was kind of a joke, but you know, you do what you got to do, right, to keep these guys safe. Hey, Chris Carey, we need to get together. It's been too long. I want to know what you're up to and how you're doing and what you're planning, because you're here. So what's going on?
He was supposed to start his new job this
Yeah.
week.
So we need to talk to you.
Yeah, different hours.
But I do
probably.
want to say, if I missed a question, ask it again. If you guys have anything else to say, ask it now, because I have to be at work at 4 a.m. Guys, I'm so sorry. We're going to get to the point where Sophie's running this, but she has school. So she can't, go all night either. So as much as we'd love to, we have to cut it off at some point. And we will be back next week with whatever, but
We need to bring up the fact that there is a page that we're trying to get going. So if anybody has any seahorses for sale, we want to get them to list on the page so that we can make it available for
okay.
others.
I agree. I remember the page. Yes.
So anybody that is seeing this, if they want to get on that page, then contact me on Messenger and give me the information and I'll put it on the page.
And then you will get
I'll
buyers.
have seahorses. Soon I'll have fry. Hopefully, we hope, and we can put them up on that page.
There you go. And I see you, Aquachar. Hi. I'm so sorry. I just announced we gotta go. I gotta be at work at like 4 a.m. So we gotta go between 4 and 5. But great to see you, Brian. And we'd love to have you on sometime or come back or whatnot. But yeah, I'm gonna cut it off as soon as you say hello. Sorry. So sorry. But yeah. All right. So guys, again, we love chatting about seahorses, water quality, problems like RODI meters and systems. We're a community. We're here to just chat and answer your questions and help each other. But we do have to work the next day or go to school. So we will be back next week. If there's a topic you want discussed, or if I missed your question, all you have to do is ask in the comment section and we will get back to it and make it a priority. I promise. We want to help you too, for sure. But for tonight, you guys, let's say Wine Wednesday. Let's say Wine Wednesday. Let's say Happy Wine Wednesday. Happy Wine Wednesday.
Okay,
everybody.
happy.